So now you're joining us into this first part of this series, and I just want to ask you a question now, and that is, how much affection do you need? And when I ask you that question, I'm asking in the context of relationships itself, because that's something that we often don't think about is how much affection do you need personally, and then what about your spouse? So that, maybe you got married and at this point you have now entered in, you've gotten past your honeymoon. But have you thought about the amount of affection? Was it just for that honeymoon period? My wife and I, we often talk about that during our honeymoon, we went on a cruise. And during that time, we saw a couple that went in their room on the first day of the cruise and never came out until 7 days afterwards. But my question really for them would be, if I saw them again, was that level of affection continued beyond the honeymoon? Is that the level of affection that each person in that relationship needed? You need to think about these things about, well, are you the one, or is your spouse the one that likes to have a lot of hugging and nurturing? Or is it just once a week or once a month and that's good? And how do you deal with it if both of you are on different spectrums? Do you even know what your spouse may want or need, really? These are questions that we want to begin to explore as we talk about this and this topic of how much affection do you need. You see, as you come together in a godly relationship, the expectation is that you are putting the needs of your other half. So if you're a guy, then your wife's other half, or if you're a woman, then your husband's other half ahead of your own. And you should both do that so that you become whole, you become one in that sense. But in order to do that, you have to understand, well, what are the true needs that your spouse has? How many of you thought about that? I'm sure a lot of you would say, I don't know. I'm just thinking about getting what I need. And so in this time, we have to make sure in this day in which we live that we're thinking about our spouse the way that God wants us to do that. You look at it this way. Every time he talks about the husband and wife, even in Genesis, it talked about this is the reason why the husband will leave the father and mother and cleave, come together, become one with the wife. And so he has to make sure that he is looking out for the needs of the wife and vice versa. And so in that type of relationship, we have to begin to explore, well, what does it mean when I want affection? Do you even understand the kind of, I would say, symbolic things that your spouse does to kind of give you a hint about what the need is? Do you understand how the moods may change when you're spending time together? And it may have something to do with a need that isn't being fulfilled. None of us are perfect when dealing with this. As long as you're married, you're always learning. And so as we develop together as a couple, as you develop together in the couple relationship that you're in, you have to begin to think about that. It matters. You see, this is the precious thing that God has put together. The marriage relationship in a godly way. He does it on purpose because he wants us to be able to understand the oneness. And it symbolizes Christ and the church coming together as one. And so in that case, that's why Jesus is always focused on our needs, because we're part of the church. And likewise, the church should be focused on what Jesus wants, because we are the bride. And if you look at the relationship that God has with Jesus himself, the Father and the Son, it is one, meaning focus on the need of the other. And so this oneness is what's required. Unfortunately, we've been told many times that, oh, well, that's just the wife's thing. She can go do what she wants. Or that's just the husband act like he's immature. And the society always degrades that relationship. But I have to tell you that that's one of the most important relationships from God's viewpoint. I did tell you that we're going to focus on things from a godly perspective. And so we'll address those things. We'll address some things that are, I guess, indications that maybe something's not quite right, or maybe there's a need that isn't being addressed. So I want you to open your hearts and minds to what we're going to discuss. For those who aren't married or even are dating or engaged, I need you to think about this also, because this gives you insight about things that you will have to deal with once you say, I do. But some of you might say, okay, great, Pastor, I might listen to this for my friend's sake or for my family's sake, but I'm not planning on getting married ever. And so in that sense, why should I even listen? Well, there are even components of what we'll discuss, not from an intimate perspective, but just in relating to your best friends or relating to folks that are in your community. Once you spend a lot of time with them, you begin to understand some things in general. So it will at least spur some thoughts there. But relationships are key. And as we do this whole series of Can We Just Relate? Then I want to make sure that you are in tune about what God is saying and what he wants us to do in our relationships. Don't let anything else, any other viewpoints begin to separate your relationships, but both of you come together and listen to what God is saying. Because I'm excited about what he is going to do, and I want to make sure that you are in tune also. Now, I want you to make sure that if you can be a part of this physically, great. That will be the best option. If you can't or you're nowhere near us geographically, make sure you tune in. And make sure you tune in through our website at makeplainjesus.org to understand what we're saying live as we stream this whole session. So I'm excited about what we're going to do. I hope you are too. And I just wanted to take this moment from home just to reach out to you and to just invite you to join us. Until then, God bless.